Hi guys, today I'm going to be using my new set of Holbein watercolors for the first time, and I'm also going to be using this new color chart that I just swatched out to choose colors for this first painting. Now I do want to give a shout out to my friend Denise for letting me use her beautiful pictures of irises. I'll be painting these 3 irises, even though I'm not a botanical artist. Anyway, these I just resonate with, so I had to paint them. Thank you, Denise. Okay, so before we choose colors, I do have a disclaimer to make, and my disclaimer is that these colors are not from a set put out by Holbein. Holbein has 3 sets that have 24 colors in them. One set is found in Japan and seems only to be in Japan. I'm living in Korea and I don't seem to have access to that. I do seem to like the set, but again, if it's not available, I can't use it. The second set with 24 colors is more traditional. It has a lot of blues and a lot of earth tones, and a lot of those blues I just don't use. And the earth tones, I don't want to have a lot of earth tones and convenience colors like that in my palette. I do have 4. Well, 5 if you count shadow green, and that's enough. So that traditional set isn't going to be suitable for me. And then the last set of 24 is botanical arts, and there's a lot of vibrant yellows and pinks and reds, and I don't normally paint that way. And so actually looking at the pigments, it was colors like rose madder and opera pink, and these colors aren't even color fast, so it's not a set for me either. And by the way, if you're choosing a set of paints, try to choose something that's color fast, because I did have an experience a long time ago painting with Shinhan student grade Bordeaux. I love that color, so beautiful. But within 6 months, all of my Bordeaux colors had turned brown, and they weren't even exposed to a lot of light. So just choose your colors accordingly. So that's why I went for open stock. I tried to choose a lot of very vibrant colors. I was choosing colors based off of the swatches in the store, and so I didn't see them mixed with other paints. Now that I have everything swatched out, I think I have 7 colors that I've identified that I wouldn't buy again, but I'm going to very much enjoy painting with them. I do love their vibrancy. They're very, very beautiful. Okay, so let's now choose the colors for this painting. I've already identified 4 basic colors that I need, and one is yellow, another orange, purple, and then green. So looking at my color chart, I only have 1 yellow. So there you go. It's Imidazalone Lemon. And let me call that Emmy Lemon because that name, I almost didn't buy the paint because that name is ridiculous. So I will have Emmy Lemon. And now I need an orange. And I can possibly mix an orange if I'm using the vermilion. I don't think I'm going to use the vermilion. So let's choose the orange in a minute. Let's now choose our purple. I have a mineral violet in my palette. I love it. It's very, very beautiful. But if I use that color, I would have only dark purple and light purple as I use more water. And why would I choose a purple that I needed to add a red or a blue to change the temperature? I'll just mix my own purple if I have to do that. So I'm going to mix my purple. So looking at the mixed purples, I really like the purples that are created by the Ultramarine Light. So, so beautiful. But I have 3 red choices now. So I can choose either the Permanent Alizarin Crimson, Quin Red, or Quin Magenta. So well, what I'm going to do now is look at those 3 colors in relation to the other color that I've chosen for this palette, the Emmy Yellow, and see which one has the most beautiful mix. And you know that's clearly the Quin Red. So now I have the Ultramarine Light, the Quin Red, the Emmy Yellow, or the Emmy Lemon, and I still need an orange, and I'm really not getting an orange with those the Quin Red and the Emmy Yellow, so I'm just going to add the Brilliant Orange. Okay, so now I need to get a green. I'm looking at the Ultramarine Light and the Amy Lemon, and that green is a little bit darker than I want. I want a very vibrant, bright green. And I do know that the Sap Green is gorgeous. So I'm going to choose this Sap Green. And you know, I'm gonna have a gut reaction here. I really liked how the shadow green and the sap green beautifully blended when I was making my color chart. So I'm going to choose the shadow green. And I was already leaning towards that one anyway, because look at the beautiful blue, or the gray blue, created with the ultramarine light and the shadow green. I love that gray. And I think I can use that gray in the background a little bit behind my three irises. So it's a good choice. So those are my 6 colors. And now you can see how clearly important it is to use a color chart when choosing colors for your painting, or at least it's that way for me. Oh, and by the way, I did add the neutral tint later to my 6 colors, so now I have 7. And the neutral tint was so that I could get blacks or really dark colors on my bee. Okay, so we're almost ready to paint, but I did want to say one more thing, and that is pigment isn't everything. When you're painting a quality painting, you actually need 3 components, and that is pigment, paper, and brushes. And not in that order in my book. I really personally think that the paper is the most important, because if your paper isn't quality, no matter how quality or how good your pigments flow on the paper, they just can't flow. And so your pigments are rather being wasted. So paper to me is the most important, and this is Fabriano Artistico hot press paper, 9 by 12 inch. It is professional. It's hot press, as I said, so it can take a lot of detail on the surface and a lot of layers. It loves water. That's great. So the next one is the pigment for me, and I have, of course, the Holbein, and that's quality pigments. They're very vibrant colors. I'm gonna enjoy painting this. And then the last one, of course, is the brushes, and I'm not so picky about my brushes, although instead of using that cat's tongue right there, I did switch it out for the 2-inch Princeton, which is flat, and that brush is much more suitable for this particular painting because I'm using that to put a swath or a sheen of water on the background. It's wide, it's controlled, and it's even. And so with that sheen of water, I can drop in the pigments, and it is really suitable. That said, even though these are all artist grade brushes, I did use a nail brush that I got at the dollar store, and I love that nail brush. I swear by it. It's one of the finest brushes I've ever had, and I will continue to use it. And so to me, brushes can be a mixed bag. And so we're now ready to begin, and I've divided this painting into little sections. At the beginning of each section, I will be making some comments about pigment or how I mix color or something that could be perhaps of interest to you. In this first section, I'm mixing the purples for the petals. And as you can see, I'm putting a lot more of the blue tone at the top or closest to the body of the iris. And as I paint that purple down to the end of the petal, it becomes more of a magenta purple, influenced by the Quin Red. Then the snowy caps of those irises really aren't so snowy. So I'm touching in a small amount of pigment diluted with a lot of water. stems and those bulby things that are unique to the iris, I am using a lot of the Sap Green. Of course, I'm using other colors, but the Sap Green is my carrier color. So for the stem itself, I'm using Sap Green with a pretty good amount of the Emmy Yellow, and that brightens the stem and kind of distinguishes it from the bulby things. And then on the left side, I use a Shadow Green, and in other places, I drop in hints of the Quin Red. Now the Quin Red is really a unique color with that Sap Green. If I drop in the Quin Red when the Sap Green is really fresh, there is kind of a rosy, brown, rusty look. It's really beautiful. But if the Sap Green has started to dry a little bit and I drop in the Quin Red, then there's kind of a curdling and a separation and the effect isn't as nice. I tried also to do this with the purple and I got similar effect. It's not as beautiful, and so I tended to use the purples for the background, which is appropriate. And then the Quin Red I use mostly for the foreground. Liking where I'm at this stage in the painting, but now I'm faced with two decisions. So my irises have very snowy caps, they're very light, and the caps are getting lost into the white background. So I have the two decisions of either paint the caps a little darker or paint the background. And my original idea was to paint in a background. And I also was thinking about that Shadow Green and Ultramarine Light combination to make that kind of a smoky gray blue. I'm having a little trouble recreating that color, and so it tends to be a little bit green or a little bit too blue, or I'm not getting quite the contrast I'm wanting. But so I am just going to put in kind of a pinky, purpley, bluey, pastel-y background with hints of the green here and there, and that will give it a feeling of distance and color and give it a very light feeling rather than more of a darker feeling that the smoky gray might give it. So now we're at the final stages. This is the stage I love. It is glazing. And so I've already taken off the masking, and underneath that pure white masking next to the purple, which would have really contaminated it, I will be painting in a little bit of yellow first and then those bright oranges. I will also be taking a little bit of yellow and glazing it on some of the stem work, particularly the stems that will be near the viewer. And I'll be glazing a little bit with the orange on some of those snowy white petals. Right now, those snowy white petals have hints of pinks and blue, but also the background has hints of pinks and blue with a little gray. And I want to distinguish those two. So I'm going to glaze a warming color, the color of orange, over that pink and blue in some areas, and that will really distinguish the petals from the background. Okay, you can also see in the stage I am touching in little bits of white. And this is a non-wash product. It's something I found. It's Ecoline liquid watercolor. I highly recommend it. It functions a lot like acrylic ink, and it has beautiful coverage. It covers purples beautifully, as you can see. So if you're curious about this, I have another video. It's called Yellow Bird and Fairy Flower, and I paint the fairy flowers with this white. And I would recommend that. I'll link it right here so that you can check out if you're interested. And anyway, I hope you enjoyed this painting. It was very exciting for me to play with Holbein paints for the first time. They are absolutely brilliant colors. I hope you gained some information about how to use a color chart very effectively. And I know that color charting is a pain in the but actually as a tool later for painting, it is absolutely a lifesaver for me because I don't have to do a lot of guesswork at color combinations. So if you haven't seen me swatch out my Holbein watercolor paints, I would recommend that video to you if you're interested in the Holbein paints and how the open stock colors, some of them that I chose, interact with each other. And maybe you would be interested in purchasing some of those colors or not.